Hello guys and welcome back. So in this video we will be creating a climbing web, or you can say a climbing system, in which the player will be able to jump from one ledge to another. Okay, so in order to allow the player to jump from one ledge to another, we need to add information to each of our point, or you can say our ledge. So for example, if this is our first ledge, then on this ledge we will be having a script in which we will be giving the direction to our next ledge. Okay, there will be also more information about that ledge, that what is the connection type, if the connection type is jump or move. Okay, because as you saw in the introductory video, we have a lot of climbing edges on which the player jump on each of them one by one, and also there are moving ledges as well on which we perform the shimmy actions. Okay, but for now in this video and in the next we will be adding our jump type climbing actions. Okay, so first of all, right here in the climbing system, let's go ahead and create a script by the name of climbing point. Then select the first point and simply drag and drop this script right here at the top. Okay, and once you do that, let's double click on it to open it in your text editor. Now let's remove the default code, and after our main class, which is climbing point, right down below we will create another class which will be by the name of neighbor, and in here we will now define some variables. Okay, and that variables will be our data about our climbing points. So first of all, we will be creating a type climbing point variable which will be by the name of climbing point as well, and to this climbing point reference we will add our climb point. Okay, then after this we will create a vector 3, actually a vector 2. Okay, that will be by the name of point direction. Okay, and this will be the direction to the next climb point. Okay, if the climb point is on the left side or on the right side or up or down. Okay, so this will be that direction. Then after this we need to create a connection type. Okay, as I told you, we will be having two type of connection point type, actually connection type, not point. The first one will be jump, the second one will be move. So right here let's create a enum for that by the name of connection type. Okay, and the first one will be jump, the second one will be move. Okay, so now right here we will say public connection type. Let's name this as connection type as well. Then after this we need to create a boolean in which we will know that if the connection is two-way or not. And I mean by this, if the connection is two-way, then the player can jump to the next climb point and also jump down from that climb point to the previous one. Okay, so we call that a two-way connection. Okay, so let's create a bool by the name of is point two-way. This will be equals to true. Okay, so once you create these variables right here at the top, make sure that you type system dot serializable. Okay, and the reason we type this is we want to show these variables in our inspector of the climbing point script. Okay, so if you save this and get back right here, for now you will not see the variables, because as you know that we will be having multiple connections on our climbing point, so we need to create a list which will be of type neighbor. So right here now in our main class, let's create a public list. Okay, in here we will say neighbor, and let's name this as neighbors. Okay, and the reason we name this as neighbors, because as I told you, we will be having multiple neighbors, or you can say multiple connection on each of our climb point. Okay, so if you now save the script, get back right here. Now on our climbing point we have this neighbors list. If you now click on this plus, as you can see, one neighbor is added, and now it needs the climbing point, the direction, the connection type, and if the connection is two-way or not. Let's make this connection two-way. Okay, and now what we will do inside our climbing system, we will create a new folder by the name of prefab or prefabs, and in here let's drag and drop our point right there. Okay, now we can make more connections. Okay, or you can say we can now create a climbing web. Okay, so after this first point, let's add our second point. Okay, let's move our second point to this position, and let's set this up correctly. Okay, so if we move it right there, then let's move it in the backward direction like this. Okay, so our player will jump from here to that position. Okay, and then from here we will make our player jump to the left side. Okay, we want to cover all of the sides, so let me actually now duplicate this simply, and let's move this right here. Okay, this will be our third point. Then we need a fourth point, so let's duplicate it and move our fourth one right there. We need to set it up, okay, right here on this window. So if we move it to the center like that, let's move it a little bit up, okay, just a little bit, and then let's set it right like this. Okay, so this will be our fourth one. Then from here our player will move to the right side. Okay, so let's create another one. Let's move it right here. Okay, and we need to set this up as well, so let's move it outside like that, and let's move it a little bit up here. That is it. Okay, so all of them are set up. Okay, and all of them will be two-way. Now we need to create a one-way connection as well. So if we select our last one, from here the player will jump to this position, and then from here the player will not be able to jump down. Okay, right here then we will add shimmy actions. Okay, so what we will do, we will duplicate this, move it right here. Okay, let's move it outside, then up right here like this, and that is it. Okay, so this last one will be a one-way connection. Okay, so now let's join them. So let's start from the first one. Okay, just make sure that you follow me step by step right here, or else you will end up messing all of these connections. Okay, so now as you know that our connection from this point to the next one is in the upward direction. So what we're gonna do, we will select the first point right here to the first point. We will drag and drop the second point in here in the climbing point, and then since it is in the upward direction, we will make the y 1. Okay, and this will be of connection type jump, and this will be a two-way. Okay, so the player will know that from here the player needs to jump to that point. Okay, and let me tell you about this point direction. If you want the player to jump in the upward direction, then make the y 1. If you want the player to jump down, then make this -1. And the same for the X. If you want the player to move to the right, make it 1, and if you want the player to move to the left, make it -1. Okay, simple as that. So we have created our first connection from this first one to the second one. Okay, let's now create a connection from this second one to this third one. As you know, this third one is on the left side, so we need to make the X now -1. Okay, the Y will be 0. And also to the second one we need to provide the third one right here in the climbing point. Okay, and leave everything as it is. Now let's select the third one, and right here the third one is right down below this one, so it should be a jump up. Let me actually move it a little bit right here. Okay, so to this third one we will first of all add the fourth one connection, I mean the climbing point right there. Then, as you know, it's in the upward direction, so make Y1 and leave everything as it is. Then let's select our fourth one. If you check the fourth one, as you know, the fourth one is on the left and the fifth one is on the right. So on the fourth one, we will now make the X1 since it is on the right side, and drag and drop our fifth connection in there. Okay, then if we select our fifth, as you can see, the sixth one is right there in the upward direction, so we will first of all add the sixth one, then make the Y1, and that will be it. Okay, and since this is a one-way connection, so we don't need to add the connection down below. Okay, so once all of these are set up, now you guys will be thinking that now we only added a one-way connection. Okay, so for example, if the player jump from this first point to the second, and as you know that this is a two-way connection, so you will be thinking that how the player will now jump from the second one back to the first one, because as you know that on the second one we only move to the left side. Okay, not right down below. Okay, so we need to add a connection back to our first one. Okay, and of course we can't do that manually one by one because that will be a really lengthy work. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we will type a code for this, and that code will be like this. If we added a first connection, then the second connection will be added automatically. Okay, so for example, we added our first connection from this first point to the second, then from the second point we will automatically add a connection back to the first one. Okay, so let me tell you now how we will do that. Right here after this list, let's go ahead and create a new function by the name of create point connection, and this create point connection will need some parameters in order to make the connection back to the previous one. Okay, so the first one will be of type climbing point, and let's name this as climbing point. The next one will be a vector2, which will be by the name of point direction. Okay, I am naming them similar to these one. Okay, but these two are different. Okay, these are the parameters of this create point connection. Okay, so after the vector2, the next one will be of type connection type, and let's name this as connection type as well. Then the last one will be of type pool by the name of is point two-way. Then we will add curly brackets, and in here let's create a neighbor. So we will say variable neighbor. Okay, not neighbors, just neighbor. This will be equals to our neighbor class right here. Okay, and as you know that in our neighbor class we have now these variables. So now let's assign the climbing point to this climbing point. Okay, so we will say climbing point equals to climbing point, then the point direction of our neighbor class will be equals to the point direction of our function, then connection type will be equals to connection type, and is point two-way will be equals to is point two-way, and make sure that you remove the semicolon from the end. I don't know why I add semicolon right here after this curly bracket. Okay, so once we assign the values at the end right here, we will say neighbors dot add, and let's add the neighbor. That is it. Now we are adding the neighbors, but we don't have the code for that thing in which we will only add this neighbor to that point in which the is point two-way is true. Okay, so in order to add the neighbors only to that points in which the point is two-way is point two-way is true. Okay, so for that right here, create a awake method. Let me remove the default code. Okay, and in here let's create a variable by the name of two-way climb neighbor. Okay, and this will be equals to neighbors dot where. Okay, and as you know that this where needs the system dot link directory. Okay, we can't type this like this. Okay, so in order to use this dot where right here at the top, make sure that you type using system dot link. Okay, so now we can use this dot where keyword. So we will say where n is equals to n dot is point two-way. Okay, so now we will create a for each loop in order to check in all of the points where the is point is two-way. Okay, so we will say variable neighbor in two-way climb neighbor. Okay, so now let's only check for that point in which the is point two-way is true. So we will say neighbor dot climbing point dot create point connection, then we will say this, then minus neighbor dot point direction, and then neighbor dot connection type, and then neighbor dot is point two-way. Okay, that is it. Now if we save the script and get back right here, now if we select our first point, as you can see from the first one we have a connection to the second one, and as you know these are a two-way connection, and on the second one we don't have a connection back to the first one. Okay, so now if we play the game, you will notice that the second connection back to the first one will be add automatically. Okay, so now if we play it, you will notice that the neighbor will be equals to 2, as you can see, and the connection back to the first one is added, as you can see right here. Okay, if I show you the scene view, okay, now as you can see from the first one we added the connection to the second one. Now from the second one the connection is now added automatically, and if we check the third one, as you can see in the third one we have the connection added automatically back to the second one, and in the same way we have the connection in all of them. Okay, now if I stop the game, let me select the last one right here. What we will do, actually select the second last right here. As you know, from here we only jump to that point. Okay, so we don't want then the player to jump down again. Okay, so what we will do, we will remove this is point two-way from this second last. Okay, not from the last one, because when the player jump from this one to that one, then we will remove this point 2a so that the player don't jump down right here. Okay, now if we play it, let me select the scene view. Okay, we also have now this exception. It say that object reference not set, because if you notice now right here, we only have a connection to the last one. Okay, I mean the last one, which is the sixth one, and also we automatically have now a connection back to the this position, which is on the left side. Okay, as you can see, okay, -1 is already set and it is back to that one. Okay, and from here the player will jump to the last one, and then from the last one the player can't jump down below. And the reason we are getting this error, okay, object reference not set to instance of an object, is because we didn't set the climbing point right here on this last one. Okay, so on this last one we will not be setting any climbing point, because right here we will add our shimmy actions, and in the shimmy actions we will be having a lot of points, okay, or you can say sub points of this last climb point. Okay, we will only move in play, we will only move player in those points. Okay, so we don't need to add this climbing point. So now in order to set this issue, what we're gonna do in our code right here, we will add a null checker. Okay, so what it will do, it will check for that climbing points which are null. Okay, and if that are null, then it will simply tell the code to cool down. Okay, there is no need to show any exception. So now if we save the script, let's clear that out. Now let's play it again. And now as you can see, we don't have any exception right here. Okay, so once this is done, now what we want to do is, now we want to show the connections between all of these climbing points, because as you know we don't have any gizmos on them, so most of our player will get confused that how these climbing points are connected. Okay, so we will be adding some connections between all of them. Okay, we will be drawing a line from each of this climbing point to the next one. Okay, so for that, after this create point connection function, we will now create on draw gizmos. Okay, and in here we want to draw line from each climbing point to the next one. So for that we will create a for each. Okay, and we will create a variable in here by the name of neighbor, and then we will say in neighbors, which is our list up here, because we want to check inside all of that neighbors. And what we want to do, if any climbing point which is set to is two-way point, okay, then what we want to do, we want to show that connection as green, and whatever connection is not two-way, then we will show that connection, or you can say that line to that connection, in black color. Okay, so we will say debug dot draw line. As you can see, it gives us all of the parameters, so let me remove all of them. Okay, so first of all, we want to draw a line from the transform dot position. Then we will say neighbor dot climbing point dot transform dot position. Okay, so we will draw a line from the first climbing point to the second one. Then we will say that if those two climbing point is two-way, so we will say if neighbor dot is point two-way. Okay, if this is true, then we will color it as green, else we will color it as black. Okay, so if we save the script and get back right here, now as you can see, whatever connection is two-way, it shows the green line, and whatever is not two-way, it now shows this black line, if you notice right here. Okay, so it means it is working, but if you notice right here, it shows that object reference not set to an instance on the fifth one, since right here we didn't add any climbing point. And if we check our code right here, it needs a climbing point. Okay, so we will check for our null climbing points as well right here. So for that we will add a if condition. Okay, and inside this if, we will say that if the neighbor dot climbing point is not equals to null. Okay, if the climbing point on whatever points is not null, then on that points we want to show this. Okay, and whatever are null, then we don't want to show this. Right here, make this C small because it is climbing point. So now if you save the script, get back right here, as you can see, we don't have any error now. Okay, and everything works perfectly fine. Okay, now the next thing which we want to do is we also want to draw an array for our forward vector of each of these climbing points. Okay, and the reason we will be creating array for our forward vector is because if we make the forward vector of this first point in that direction, okay, and now if we go ahead and play the game, you will notice now that the player hand position will be changed. Okay, as you can see, it is not looking good. Okay, so in the future, or if you guys by mistake created any point in which the forward vector is not in this position, then all of your climb points will be just a waste of time. Okay, just as we did in the previous video, we deleted our climb point and we created these new climb points. Okay, so we want to avoid that mistake. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we will create an array in the forward direction of the climb point. So we will say debug dot draw array. Okay, we want to draw array from the transform dot position of the point, then that array will be in the transform dot forward direction, and let's color this as red. So color dot red. If we save the script now, get back right here, now as you can see in the forward vector we now have a ray right here. As you can see, it is now showing this ray. You can actually color this ray as blue if you want, since our forward vector is of color blue. Okay, as you can see right here, so you can color this as blue as well, as you can see now. Okay, so now we have a climbing system. Now in the next video we will allow the player to jump, or you can say to climb between these system. Okay, or you can say this web.